of course. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Podfluxxx. This is episode 69. Ricky, we're like 2 weeks late. I'm sick as a dog. Your cell phone is apparently the drizzling shits.
Yes.
But we are Podfluxxx, and what was that saying we used to say when we used to think we were over? We're the standard at which professional wrestling excellence is measured.
Sure.
So,
sure we are.
What's new, man?
Soccer practice, karate practice, all these things. I'm more tired and more busy not wrestling than I was when we were on the road every week.
Yeah. That's that dad life, bro.
It's not fun. It's not easy.
Kid's keeping you busy. He's getting big on you. You know he's gonna be whooping that ass soon.
Oh yeah. He already kind of is. Even mommy's doing karate now.
Wait, what?
Right. Yeah. I get beat up more now than, at least I was getting paid for it before.
Right.
Now she says, "Oh, I learned this," and does like a spinning back kick to my face. And then she has weapons now. Like, they gave her weapons. So I asked, can we not do that?
So now it's you get beat up more than you did when you were getting paid for it, but getting beat up now probably costs you money.
Yes. I'm investing in these ass whippings. Yes.
Ain't that something? Let's talk about another ass kicking that you got paid for. We are ready to jump into yours and my single cage match from December of 2011. That was a long time ago. We were both far younger men. And it was for the New York State title. It was VPW's first singles one-on-one steel cage match. The second cage match in company history. You and I had the privilege of being in the first one and the second one. I think I did one more where it was me, you, and JD versus Kev, Dorian, and Kai.
Yes. Did we do that at Center Reach?
Yeah, that was in Center Reach.
Yeah, I remember that one.
We did the finish where I knocked him out with the chain.
Yes.
And it, and the paramedics were all in the ring.
Yes.
And I still contend to this day that I should have got a VPW title run out of that feud, but what do I know? So anyway, but back in time, 2011, I'm going to ask you a question now that I haven't asked you since we've stopped watching bad wrestling. Did you watch it? No,
I lived it. I bumped for the comeback on it. I know what happened.
So I watched it. And at the sake of making everybody listen to me cough and sniffle, I'm going to say some things, press my mute button, and kind of let you get carried away here. So they set us up for this cage match. We go in. Now, you remember how we started this thing?
No, what I remember most about it is us the day of or whatever, like the backstage you and I interactions, like getting ready for it. I remember most of how we laid the match out, like the psychology of it, like how we were going to do it. I remember it was sold out, full to the rafters. They were, babies were being thrown in the air. I can't remember. There was a time when you had bought new shirts and you had this plastic tub full of them. And I don't know if it was here or if it was at Center Reach, but I remember you came back and it was empty. And you said, thank you. I just sold out. I don't know which show that was, but I remember specifically like you being like, I just sold out all my shirts. Like, and then I thought, wait a minute, like I'm not selling merchandise. Do I get a cut of this? um, so I remember, you know, big chunks of it because it was a big deal to me. So, but I don't remember how we started. I don't know if we went hot or what.
Well, here's what obviously I watched the match
Yeah.
within the last few days, but the what you were talking about, like us building to it, and that day, like day of, I remember being nervous because I was doing something that you had just done yourself a couple of years earlier. And I was making a change from a tag team wrestler
Yeah.
to a singles wrestler.
Right.
Right. But basically at the same exact time that it was happening, I was making that change into a top two babyface and a champion at the same time. So I remember being nervous about like because I'm still trying to figure out who I am as a singles wrestler. You know, like what do I do?
Yeah.
I don't know what I do, you know, and trying to string all that together. So like watching it back, like you can see the wheels in my head turning.
Yeah.
I can't specifically remember if they were turning because I was trying to remember everything that we were going to do, which, spoiler alert, wasn't a lot.
Yeah. I was just going to say.
Or if I was just trying to make sure I was in the right spot for you. Because I remember a lot of this time, in this time frame, like you were really big on like keep moving. Yeah. Like if I gotta put you down and then pick you up, like why should I do that? And I remember that clicking, and I remember a lot in the beginning of my singles run, like trying to take something, register it, move around, go to a different spot, hit all four sides of the ring, let people see shit. But we started this match, we started it on the floor, right? And I'm watching it, and I'm like, you come out with all the dipshits, okay? And then you send them away, and then you crouch down behind the barricade.
Okay, yeah.
And then I got to walk out the 8 feet, right? It's 8 feet because we're coming out of the gym door.
It was the side door, like by the stage.
The stage, yeah. We're coming out of the stage door. Yeah. So we got like an 8-foot entrance, and I got to like walk out there and pretend that I don't notice that you're not inside of the steel cage that's 8 feet away from me. So I remember that, and you got up on me on the outside, and then we got halfway around. I got back up on you. This was not the T-shirt that you were thinking about, because I was still rocking the new design of the Funky Fresh Boys T-shirt, because I had to finish selling those first. But the new ones came out, I think, like a month or two later. But then we got in, and it was funny because, first of all, Kai Katana was the door ref.
I do not remember that. Okay.
And then we're doing the thing where, like, you're trying to sell your way into the ring, which is silly because, like, you're selling up a stairs and then through a doorway and then between ropes. So, like, right as you get there, I put my hands on your ass and just give you a shove, and you go right through the ropes. And then I come in and I slammed it. I do the, remember the Undertaker thing? And I remember you being like, when we were talking about it earlier in that day, like slam that door closed, and you were like, you don't have to say it, but your body has to say, like, now you're locked in here with me. But of course, I did it too fast and I rushed it, and there was like no dramatic effect to it. But then we started going, man, and I remembered us. I remember the two high spots that we called, right? So the way we put this match together was, it was like a lot of me on you in the beginning.
Yes.
Like briefly, but a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Punch, kick, kind of sidewalk slam kind of shit.
Yep.
And then you cut me off with a neck breaker.
Okay.
And so you built, I'm going to say you built, because you were really the architect of this match. And I mean, obviously I had my input of my ideas, but like you kind of laid out an outline and then we filled in all the blanks. So you built this match to be like a little shine around the ring so everybody can see it.
Yep.
A little shine once we got into the cage. And then heavy heat.
Yeah.
And I don't want to get into the finish and stuff just yet. And then it was like a heavy heat, a big comeback, and then another cutoff. And then you were just murdering me, and then we went home. So you said you remembered like doing the layout and everything.
Yeah.
Do you remember why you wanted to lay it out in this fashion?
Basically because neither one of us do a lot of moves. So I remember thinking, like, of all the guys there, you mirror me the most when it comes to like move set per se, right? And stylistically, we're kind of the same, and then our mentality is very on the same level. So it's like as if I was wrestling myself, and I was like, what would I do? And I'm like, I don't really do much, right? Like I got like 3 regulars that I pull out, other than that, it's just the structure of making the moment so the moves would mean the most. So yeah, so now that you say that, it's all coming back. I remember specifically I wanted to ambush you to get a little more heat, to show that, like, just different, because I didn't really know how to start the match. And then I thought, with the whole like you're getting me in the cage type of thing, and it's your time to finally get your hands on me type of thing. That was my mindset behind it. And then it was just kind of like, just bump me around, keep me moving. I remember that. And then, my heat, which is, it's really nothing. Mean face, choke, mean face, bump, mean face. So I just wanted to really stretch out the emotion of it. And I remember specifically, I'm almost positive that your comeback had all four corners, or 4 cage bumps, right? Like, I ran me into one, take me to another. And I'm almost positive. I was thinking about this the other day, that I told you, don't use the cage until that moment or whatever.
We did not use the cage at all until the comeback.
Yes.
Now, the cage was supposed to be, on the comeback, it was supposed to be all 4 sides.
Yes.
But I picked you up and I threw you into one side, and you sold, and it was the entranceway side, right? So nobody got to see anything. And then I grabbed you again and threw you into the same side, right? And then you sold, and you can tell as I'm grabbing you, you could kind of tell, like, maybe you said something, or maybe I realized, because I started going back to the same side, and then I changed direction. You were probably like, over there, dipshit. And so I pivoted, and then we went to another side. But you can tell, like, in the comeback, like, I was just starting to, like, figure out what my stuff was. So this was during the period of time where my big things consisted of the that T-bone suplex I was doing, the Blue Thunder bomb, right? And I believe I was just figuring out that flying reverse DDT at that point.
Yeah.
I hit that at some point. A big mark for myself. That was called the Fresh-O-Matic. Thanks, Edge. And so, like, but like you could see, like, I wasn't 100% like comfortable in that kind of an aspect because you could see me thinking about what I was doing while I was doing it instead of just doing it. Right. So, like, again, like I was saying before, this was like a big step outside of my comfort zone. And now it's like, oh, by the way, you're in the main event again. And this story that you're doing drew all these people, and your opponent is your trainer, your friend, somebody who's going to tell you you sucked if you sucked. You know, we weren't going to, if it was bad, there wasn't going to be high fives, and it was going to be an awkward ride back to Long Beach or wherever I was living at the time, right? Mm-hmm. So, but we did a sleeper. We did a sleeper hold. We grabbed a rest hold in the middle of a cage match, right? So these people are out here watching us for 10 minutes. We spent the first 2 minutes not inside the cage. We spent the first 10 minutes, we didn't use the cage, and now we're in a rest hold. Okay? So
fuck them. We already got their money.
Right. They were already there. They were with it. Every time you put me down, they wanted to see me come back up.
Yeah.
And when you first put me in it, they were like coming alive, chanting. And I remember I kind of preach the opposite of it now. And like I tell the guys, like, you know, if somebody's got you and they're coming, like, start going because you might not get them back. Right. But they were coming, and then you waited for them to die. And then we laid down. And I remember, like, as I'm watching it, I'm thinking that I don't know if it was a fact, but I could almost envision you saying they're going to come. And when they do, we go. And then they started coming back.
Yes.
And then we started going.
Yeah.
And then you cut me right back off immediately.
Okay, so, like, my mindset then, at least, was that we were so over that I wasn't worried about losing them. So what you're telling the guys now is, like, not wrong. It is right, because that was like something that Chavo used to say that Eddie would say at house shows, because they wouldn't call anything during house show matches with, like, Shelton Benjamin and those guys. And when Eddie was in a hold or something and the people would come up, he would say, we got to go, because they want it. And so it's not wrong. But I also thought at that time, like, they think they want it. I understand that, but we can get them to get, if I take it away or don't give it to them, you know, I'm going to get over even more. They're going to get more frustrated, because we know we're going to give them something, right? So it's not going to be a complete waste. So I remember that was the mindset, because I thought, we are so over, we can manipulate them however we want. Like, it wasn't going to be wrong, right? Because we can see the future. So we know the end of the last 3 count is going to be exactly what they wanted. It was just, you know, extended foreplay, if anything. You know, like, they would come, they wanted it, and then I'm like, no, to me, I was like, well, that's not enough. Like, so I'm going to take it away some more, you know, and we're going to rebuild, and then you're going to kind of get it. It's funny, because, like, watching those old MSG Hulk Hogan matches, You know, like if he went the first time, every time the crowd came up, he'd have had a 4-minute match every night, right? Because they kind of cut him off after his bullshit in the beginning, you know, but he had to put in another 10. And he's basically doing the same thing, just sitting on his hip, you know, pulling the crowd in. So that was my mindset, at least in that, because I thought, well, we were over like that, where they came to see this or us, and I mean all of us as a whole. Like every match could have did that, you know. But at that night, and again, to what I was saying earlier, was like neither one of us really did much. So if I could just piss them off this way with, and for our sake, it was doing nothing, right? Like, so we weren't bumping for it. So it was better for everybody involved, you know? But yeah, what you're saying is not wrong. So if guys hear this or something and they think, oh, like if you have confidence in what you're doing and you can false hope spot that, you know what I mean? Like that, like you start to hulk up, and then I pull your hair, boom, and then you hit the mat. The heel gets over, then it's more booze, because that's when you stand there and just soak it in, and you're on the floor like fuck, you know, like. So now when you set the table for the next big wave of, you know, let's go fresh type thing, I'm trying to stop it again, and then you're like, no, boom, and then there's a big break and then a bigger moment there, you know, to pay off. You do have to pay that off. You can't always take it away or cut it like we did. But again, that was my mindset in that, like, you know, was like, we can get them back. We'll get them back. I wasn't worried about it. You know, some people like, oh, you should have went. It's like, well, I could have, yeah, sure. But it wasn't wrong, because later when it did come back, it was what we wanted it to be. So.
Yeah, I feel, you know, like I agree. I feel like, you know, like match one or match two, when they're getting with you right there,
Go with it. Go with it. Sure.
go with it.
But that's another thing though. Another difference that you can explain as well is there's a difference between match one and then match 7.
Right.
There's a different style of main event. There's a different style of match for main event match layouts. So yeah, like anytime, but that's what I mean. Like in the match one situation, 1 or 2, if you know the babyface is super over in that way, and you're kind of just working as a heel, I don't want to put you in a hole too early, because I want to get that heat on you and get that sympathy. But you kind of test it out like 1 or 2 times. If you feel them starting to come, get away from it. You know, get that hold. They start to work up a little bit. Crowd's really coming a little faster than you anticipated. Let it go. Pop them in the lower back. Shoot them into the buckle. You know, boom. Big elbow out. And then you're just kind of like walking and talking until we're ready to go to that comeback. Then grab the hold. And that's the hold you work out of,
Right,
for the comeback.
So we also we did something where you bumped me big, and I believe you went for like a cover, and I kicked out, and you immediately stood up and went for the door. Right? So
Okay.
so Kai opens the door, and you're like halfway out.
Open the door, dipshit.
You might have said open the door, dipshit. There's like an 87% chance that you were totally like, open the door, dipshit. And then he opened the door. It's a regular door. And I'm kind of crawling up behind you. And then I go to stop you. And as I stop you, I pull you over for a roll up. And that was like, for some reason, a false finish. Because it went 1, 2, the crowd popped when you kicked out. It was really weird. My high spot, I remember suggesting to you the backdrop into the cage.
Yes.
And then I remember you being like, yeah, all right. And so it came off pretty good, like watching me hit up against the cage and then eat shit the whole way down between the ropes and the cage. Like that was a fun spot. And then that led to you picking me up on the apron in between the cage and the ropes, and like trying to like buckle me.
Yeah.
And then we had a fight on the apron, and I mounted like a little mini comeback on the apron. And I remember this from that night. Like I went to put your head into the buckle while you were in the ring.
Yeah.
And so I'm like this with your head, and then you just jumped off into the cage. And I remember being like, "Oh, like that night, like I was surprised. Like it was shocking to me, but it got a reaction." And then I went to the top rope, and do you remember what we did from there?
Did we do a superplex from there?
We sure did.
Did we?
Right? First of all, I'm climbing to the top rope. Does anybody in that building have a realistic expectation that I am going to ascend to the top of this cage and then try to climb down it? Not a chance.
No.
Right? Is there any good goddamn reason why I'd try to climb up this cage to jump off it? No. So there I am. I'm up there. You come up. We're fighting. Boom, boom, boom. Picture perfect superplex. Beautifully timed. We both hit the same time. I bounced like 2.5 feet. That was another big pop on the kick out. 1-2. And then we did you hit me with that shark bite. And then immediately picked me up and went for the brain buster. And watching that brain buster back, I was so proud of myself, because I remember not being a fan or wanting to be dropped on my head, right? So I always tried to keep myself out of those types of situations.
That's what Kevin was for.
Right.
Do it to the small one.
Yeah. Just all the people on the planet can jump on and dive on me. That's fine.
Yeah, right.
When it comes to drop it on your head, that's for you. But I remember going over it, and you always being like, ass first, then legs.
Mm-hmm.
Ass first, then legs. And so it was timed so beautifully, because I got my ass up, my legs straight, and as soon as my legs got straight, you went. So it was like it went up, and then I was just a downward trajectory missile.
Right.
And it was just so beautifully timed. Big pop on the kick out there. And we're like, I think like 17 minutes into this thing.
Wow.
And yeah, we were out there a while. And the people are still into it.
Yeah.
Now, the finish. You remember our finish spot?
I do not remember the finish for the life of me. That's what I couldn't remember.
Okay. So you gave me the shark bite.
Right.
You gave me the brain buster.
Yes.
Okay. You gave me like this gnarly head kick. And then you went to pick me up, and I collapsed. You went to pick me up again. I collapsed. You got your heat from the people. You came back around, bent over to pick me up, and we finished this whole match with a small package.
Now I remember. Yes.
In my mind, that was, I've done all of this for him, right? I've let him punch me in the skull repeatedly. Let him bounce me off of a cage. I carried him through this cage match. If I'm dropping this belt for him, it's a roll-up.
It's a roll-up.
Was that basically the mindset behind the finish? To kind of make it look like I caught you off guard?
Yeah, it was more of well, a couple things. Like, first, I always thought that when you do like a small package roll up, whatever, it's a counter to an attempt, right? So like
Right.
basically you out wrestled me at the end. So my thought process was I emptied everything in the kitchen sink on you to destroy you, and I couldn't. And then right as I go in, you out wrestle me. So like if you had another slicker pinning sequence you could have did, it would have been like right there. Or but I was like, oh, like a roll up, like I basically went to go pick you up, right, and fed myself into.
Right.
Yeah, so it was that. It was the surprise, because once I got that heat right before I went in, was the whole point, was get them to boo the shit out of me. So my heat level was at its peak, I guess. Like I'm confident. I'm like, oh, this guy is done, right? Like, this is over, right? Like, and then boom. So it was a couple of those types of things. Like now that you say it, it all comes back. But
yeah, like I feel like it was like a very like 2000s New Japan kind of I hit him with everything, ran him over with the Mack truck,
right,
like kind of just like a what am I trying to say? Like a what do I have to do to, like, I gave it every shot I had and I couldn't beat him. You know
right.
what I mean? So like that's kind of the way it looked building into it. But it was just a funny thing to see, because then like the ref counts 3, and it was Raul when Raul was still fat. Remember when
Yeah.
Raul was fat?
Yes, yes.
What? I'm gonna get off on a side note. Do you remember? I don't remember what match it was, but it was like a 20-minute match, and they kept doing pin sequences over and over and over, purposely just to make Raul keep getting up and down and up and down.
I was gonna say I do remember that, if that's where you were going. Yes, I
Yeah,
do
I
remember that.
remember that in Center Reach, and I remember laughing
Yes,
my ass off the whole
it
time.
was. I remember him complaining and like almost having a heart attack in the back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He went on to have a heart attack, but he's okay now and he's skinny.
Oh, good.
So shout out to Raul too. But like, so you get up and like you're all pissed off and you lost, and I'm just on the mat, right? And so like, because I just got the shit kicked out of me,
Right.
and then I'm trying to convey like emotion, like I'm emotional. So I'm on the mat and I'm doing one of these, but it looks like I'm just blown up and gasping for fucking air. So I'm trying to convey one thing, but what is coming across is like somebody get him an oxygen tank. You know what I mean? And it was really funny. Kevin and Vinny come out afterwards. We do a big stupid celebration. I'm pretty sure I probably cut a bad promo right after the match or whatever. But like, losing in a cage and then having to leave it, is that not one of the most awkward things of all time?
Yeah, I always like, I got good at it because I did it so many times, but I just figured like the smaller I could get, the better, right? Because at that point, I'm irrelevant. If you did your job right as a heel, you can just. I always, what I always think about when I lose in a big match, Brett losing at WrestleMania, the Iron Man, when he's walking back, unwrapping his tape, and he's just, and I always like try to emulate that, like completely frustrated, you know, they're yelling at me, but I'm not even gonna acknowledge. I'm so mad I don't hear the crowd. Like that always plays in the back of my mind, ironically. Like, so I always remember like thinking like, because I remember we did the first cage, the baby faces all came in, and I was still in there with them. Yeah. And I remember I just needed to get off the mat, like, and then I was just straight running to the back. But yeah, the few cage matches I did do, I remember I envisioned Brett leaving WrestleMania. It was 12, I think, right? The Iron Man,
Yeah.
Anaheim. Yeah. I just remember him like unwrapping his wrist tape and like throwing, and then like people are just like yelling at him, and he's just like, I always so I just try to get out of there as I mean, all the time, anytime a heel loses, right? It's like you should just vanish, quicker the better.
Yeah, but it's like so awkward. It's like
Yeah.
now I got to climb through the ropes,
Right.
and now I got to go through the door, and
Yeah.
now I got to go down the steps.
Yeah.
And it's just like it's. I almost feel like maybe I should just dead cell and let them take the cage down around me.
Yeah.
But so I mean, there was a lot of fun aspects to this match. What would I the tear I had to go on to after this? What I went on to after we did the cage match was crazy because like Kevin and Vinny were, and it was only for a few months, but they were a tag team.
Yes.
Right, and they were the tag team champions.
Yes.
And then I believe Joseph Von Schmidt was the heavyweight champion at the time.
Possibly, yeah.
And I was the New York State champion. So, like, for all intents and purposes, like, I had to be, like, the top singles babyface
champion, yeah.
And the only way that they could figure out a way to book that was to make me have – I had, like, 4 simultaneous feuds. I'd be like a month with this guy, and then a month with that guy, and then a month with the next one, and then that guy came out and ran it at the end of that match, and then this one, and then finally until it all broke down into Kai Katana absurdities. But we're gonna get there. So this cage match, closing thoughts, Rick.
Oh, it was fun. Like I said, for all kinds of different reasons. Like I said, my whole time at VPW, for me, was kind of me finally being able to have some say somewhere and like kind of like plant these seeds and like watching them grow type thing, because Sean was so. People don't understand what VPW was before, right? I'm sure they don't. I'm sure it's a completely different animal now. But before, the inmates were running the asylum, but all the inmates had the right idea on how to run the asylum, until when we finally got rid of Johnny Five and we didn't have to argue our points to someone who has no right to be booking us, in anything. But he just promoted, you know what I mean? Like Sean, and I always, like I said, I've used VPW, the story of VPW for me, at least in seminars and Q&As and meet and greets, whatever, like, because when people ask like how to do something in wrestling, I can literally say, well, I was a huge draw in New York, like, I mean, I'd have a much bigger house if this were the 70s and 80s, but, we were, as a group, we all saw value in everything and everybody and stuff, like, and I really wish, like, I don't know how it is there now for you guys, but, if you don't have still some, inkling of that now, it's hard to keep a crowd, because if you guys are going back to the same spot, same town or whatever, there's still that old school territory style booking that works. And we proved that because we were doing nothing, we were hit or miss, it would be like, there's a carnival in town, so we had 200 people. Then the next week we have, 27, because, no one knows whose dream match was, Ricky Reyes versus Flex, like nobody's, but you advertise it as one. People don't know me. They certainly don't know this guy, but you built it up to be something special. It doesn't work, so once.
And they couldn't get there in time to see it because it was on 2.
Right. Yeah, exactly. They wanted to leave. Yeah, exactly. but you know, for me, doing the first page we did was awesome, was fun. But then doing this one was more of a okay, like I can do this. If I get to do this with all these guys, we'll all be good, you know. So after that, I don't really know who had told you what you were doing after. I can't really remember that time frame, but I don't know because I remember it was later once we were consistently selling out every show. Sean was like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah. So make a card," and then hand me and Tibbs a piece of paper, and then we go huddle in the corner, all of us, you know, and then try to figure out first what we all wanted to do, and then you know what's the crap left over. All right, cool. Tonight's a battle royal or 8-man, you know, whatever. But it was kind of the start of that, you know. So that gave me a lot of confidence moving forward.
Johnny Five was around until I turned. The last conversation I remember having with Johnny Five was me saying, I want to turn heel, and then him saying, I don't think you can be a heel, and then me laughing at him and saying, watch this, and then coming back 5 minutes later, a heel, and being like, and that was the last time I remember seeing him. And then after that, it was the Kevin Tibbs and Rookie Reyes loose leaf paper and pen booking committee.
Yeah, so that's another thing too, right? As a booker, you know, you would think, I don't know how much you guys do of it, but if you have guys that you know you're centering certain things around, understanding their personalities and having some sort of one-on-one connection to kind of figure them out is important, right? Like, first off, we're all good heels because we are all pieces of shits. You know what I mean? Now, how much we want to crank it up will depend on what we're doing, you know.
Or
So,
crank it down in some of our cases.
yeah, right. But that's the whole thing, right? Like he didn't really know like us, you know, he knew of us or he knew what he saw for that 10 minutes out there was
Right.
what we were doing.
He showed up 5 minutes before the show started,
Right.
and he was out the door 5 minutes after it ended.
Yeah.
I get to the building around 5 o'clock show day. And I know it's a little different because I was still, I don't want to say in the locker room because I wasn't still working, but I was like managing JD and I was a part of the show. And then I was the commissioner. So I was still interacting, right? If you're in some type of creative position, you know, you're helping creatively, you're the booker. If sweet dreams, baby, if you're not interacting with the guys and girls in your locker room, then you don't have any business booking them.
Sure.
Because if you can't see, like if you can't see somebody's personality and then have that go to you, oh, you know what would work for this fucking guy, or you know, I could see him doing this, or knowing what somebody's really like if you're not closely watching the people that you're trying to promote, then you're not doing it right.
Right. I mean, it's the same thing like a coach watching practice. You know, he's probably watching guys and thinking, that guy's really fast. What if we put him at receiver? Or, you know, what if he's a running back that catches too? Because he could run these routes. Like, it's the same thing, you know, it's like a director knowing the star. Like, you can do a little hint of comedy in this, you know, without making it comedy, you know, because you have that evil personality. Um, it's just in all aspects of it, it's communication, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Triple H, Shawn Michaels, Stone Cold, Same thing that I say about commentators. If you don't have a connection with the commentator as the star of the show, how do you expect for them to lay down the soundtrack to your movie? You know, I mean, later on, I learned way more about it in Lucha Underground, but for us here, I knew that, like, when I was in Puerto Rico, I talked to Carlos all the time. You know, every show, any chance I got. Like, if he was walking by himself, I was like, you know, he'd be like, shit, this little beaner's back again. And I was like, hey, I had a question, you know, just to pick his brain on everything, you know. I remember, like, one conversation I had with him was, I was like, look, I want to be a good heel, but I don't want to be like a weak looking heel. I want to win with wrestling moves, you know. And then he kind of like was like nodding and kind of just like listening to what I was saying. And I was like, how would you recommend I do that? You know, because he was not going to change me babyface, and I had asked like twice.
Right.
And he was like, yeah, he goes, I understand. He goes, maybe before you're finished, kick him in the nuts. And I was like, okay. And he said, the heel should always cheat to win, but hit your finish after, and you can always say, no, I hit him with, you know, this neck breaker, and that's what beat him. You know, that's your argument, right? Is that you won with your finish. So that made sense to me. So, and then I learned how to do it in promos, because we do promos every week, you know?
Right.
So, and then it was like, last time we were in the ring, you know, and then I would say that, and then I would tell the babyface who was standing right next to me, like, hey, now say I kicked you in the nuts, you know, before my finish. And he'd like, oh yeah, good, you know. And then that's how we learn to do promos off of each other, you know. So just stuff like that.
I feel like just back to the booking thing also, it does go both ways, because there are guys that don't have the time of day until they have an idea or they want to do a certain thing, and then it's brother.
Yeah.
But like, you know, I can see that. But I mean, on our match here, to me, like, this felt like my graduation. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I went in there with the teacher, and I got the approval, and he handed me my diploma.
Right.
And now it was my turn, or my time to go off
Sure.
and use the education I got to make everything better.
I mean, yeah, absolutely. That's kind of why when I was talking to Sean later, like after we had did this match, I said, if I could do that, what I did with Kevin, with everybody, I said that would be ideal for the school, or really the future of the promotion, you know, because then everyone can kind of have had that main event, that kind of all eyes on me moment, you know, and then in different ways, right? Because and then we just started becoming more. So once I kind of ran through a couple people, it became like, okay, everyone's kind of getting it. Now we can just have fun with it, you know. So like we did the hard work. Like, we were kind of like a little bit of the foundation of that hard work, right? Because like the first cage was a big deal. Then the second cage was, you know, from their eyes, or, you know, the fans' eyes, the guy that needed this, got it. So, which made you a super baby face, which made you an even better heel when the time came. And then we were basically just having fun, wild nights every night, you know, like, because we had already did that groundwork.
Right.
So for like wrestlers that are still searching for that thing, it's not, for me at least, it wasn't a certain thing. It was just a moment of trying many things that made me go, huh, you know, this seems to be working just fine everywhere I go. So I'm just going to keep doing that, you know? And then that was it.
I think that if we didn't do this and I didn't get the kind of run that I had as a babyface with the New York State title, me switching heel to join you would not have mattered.
Right. Correct. Absolutely. Yeah.
But
like this was the foundation for that to really blow up, and we didn't even know it yet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I was just, and you know what? There's something to be said about not being flip-floppy.
Yeah. No.
Right?
Right. Yeah, yeah.
There's a lot of guys who have gone started babyface, then gone heel. That didn't work out. They went back to babyface, tried heel again, and just keep going back and forth and back and forth. And after a while, that's kind of like a shot to the credibility.
Yep.
You know, you went in VPW, you were a heel up until our second go around when I was heel and you went babyface, and then we just never saw you again. But I only did the one turn, and I think it was effective. It was impactful, and I still get booed, and I feel like some people, like all the people who came to the shows and originally knew everything about all of us, there's maybe 2 or 3 of them left, tops, right? But there's a whole aspect of the audience that will boo me just because when they started coming to the shows, there was way more people that booed me, right? And then they'd hear me talk and they go, oh, all right, this guy's a dick. They didn't know the genesis of this guy's a dick,
right?
But they knew that 5 years ago, the 40 people that were left from 10 years ago booed the shit out of me because, like that night I turned heel. That kid took the shirt off that he bought it 2 months earlier, and he's like, how much did that shirt cost? And I remember this plain as day, like it was yesterday. I go, it's $25. And he was like, oh man, I only have 23. Or he was like, this is my last $23. And I snatched it out of his hand, and I was like, that's fine. And I gave him the shirt, and then I turned heel. He ripped it off at ringside and threw it on the floor. Like, that's some shit.
You're right, yeah.
And it's all because you put me over in a steel cage for this thing.
Oh, wow. Look at that. Old Blue.
Old Blue. The VSK.
The VSK belt, yeah.
Blue belt.
Oh, boy. I hated that ugly-ass thing.
They eventually commissioned new belts.
Thank God.
And JD was the last one to have this one. And they handed him the new one, and he was like, I'm not asking anybody for permission, but I think you should have this. And I was like, you know what? That, to me, spoke volumes of JD as a person.
Right.
But it also spoke volumes of what I did with this belt and what this belt did for me.
Yeah. You know what? I'll say this. It's funny how I was always told, like, oh, you take this too seriously, you worry too much, you know, and then when I got to VPW, it was like, all you guys wanted was to get better, So, and then I realized, oh, like, these guys aren't knocking me for caring too much. Like, they want to care too much too with me, And it translates in ticket sales, and if it were rightfully distributed, we'd have all been making a lot of money, because we went from having those shows where we had nothing, and like I said, once our music plays, that's it. We're just cashing in at this point because the work was done. And I mean, I can't remember another place even Monster Factory that has, it's their own building and their own fans. Like, we had moments like that, but it could have been so much more if they would have let me, do more with everybody else. But we were proof that we made Sean's job easy, right? Like, kind of he still did his job like he would normally do. But the people coming back, the tickets that were sold, it was like 150 to 200 tickets sold even 2 weeks before the show was happening, and then there'd be another 150, 200 coming that day, and really just to see all of what our dumbasses were doing. Because if you really had cameras behind before the show, we didn't know if that ring was going to stay up, if it was going to go up. We didn't know. I mean, we had Grop out.
Show up. There were a lot of ups that were up in the air.
There was so much. And then to know that the show that we put together was Sean walking up, unfolding a piece of paper, telling me or Tibbs or whoever, like, yeah, just make a show.
Yeah, fucking deli menu he pulls out of his back pocket. Here, make a card.
Yeah, hello wrestling, and it was, and I'm like, how did we make all that so good for years?
I mean, this is gonna sound some type of way, but I'm gonna say it anyway. Sean used to say to us in practice, he'd say, "These people, they don't even like wrestling. They just like yous."
Yeah. Right.
Like, we 100% drew every house.
Right.
It all sold out, like, off the backs of the 8 or eventually 10, 12 of us. And anything that was on the card that didn't involve us was cannon fodder.
Yeah.
That whole thing revolved around us. And once Sean realized it, there was no use for Johnny Five.
Sure.
There was no use for the Johnny Rods guys, right?
Right. That was the point.
The only use there was for Static at that point was he'd come up from Florida with a carload of free guys. You know what I mean? So right. Sean would never. Sean's favorite word was free. So, right. But like, and I feel like all those other guys, they knew it, because eventually, one by one, they all just stopped showing up.
Yeah. Well, that's what I mean. Like, when you and you guys being like you guys, like you, Vinny, Eric, Tibbs, like that first core group, because that's what made me talk to Sean the first time I was ever there. I remember Center Reach specifically, you and Tibbs coming out, and there's this like explosion, and I'm like, hey, I want to beat them up. Like, that would be fun. Like, and I remember thinking, like, stop booking me against these idiots in match 2 and let me wrestle these guys in match 7.
If you were to listen a little more closely, they were actually chanting "funky fat ass" and not "funky fresh boys." But whatever, the reaction was the reaction, right?
That's it.
Dude, that crew in Center Reach, when we first started, and there was 45 people in the crowd, they killed me and Kev. We were getting like Die Rocky Die was a nice day. Like we were getting fucking murdered. And then eventually, once we started getting into something with Eclipse, like, the people hated Joe and JD so much.
Yes.
There was, I can't remember if it was like a birthday party or if it was a benefit, but there was like 40 kids in wheelchairs, right? And we're in Deer Park. And me and Kev are standing in the ring, and here comes Joe and JD. And JD's in a shopping cart. right? And Joe's pushing it, and JD just looks over at this group of fucking kids in wheelchairs, and he's like, "Oh, my legs work perfectly fine. I just don't feel like walking."
He's the greatest human being of all time.
Right? And then another time in Center Reach, there was this girl, Ricky, like, if she has a job, she gets paid by the pound. Like, this girl was like 440, and she'd sit in the front row, and me and Kev were standing in the ring. And you got to remember, like, we're in the ring,
Right.
so we have to not react to this stuff the way we want to. And this girl's in JD's face, and he just points at her, right? Looks her dead in the eyes and goes, "Shut your mouth, fat girl," right? And then, like, she waited. She wanted to fight him after the show. She waited for him. It was goddamn hysterical. And then, like, 4 or 5 months later, maybe, we're doing another tag match with Eclipse, except they're in Lucha masks because Eclipse isn't supposed to get another tag match.
Midnight Rider story.
And the girl's out there, and we see her before we go out. So I smartened JD up on how to say "shut your mouth, fat girl" in Spanish. Okay? And so he gets out there, and she's like, "I know who that is," whatever. And he looks her dead in the eye and goes, "Cállate la boca, fat girl." And her response to them was, "It's Eclipse. It's Eclipse."
She figured it out.
Oh my god. Oh my god. My legs, they work perfectly fine. But yeah, like, I don't even know how we got off on this tangent, but we did. Beautiful.
It was awesome.
J Delta. All right. You got anything else tonight?
Nope. That was it.
All right. We jumping back into Lucha Underground next week?
Whatever. Yeah, whatever you want to do. I don't care.
I figure we'll start some season 2, and then we'll get through it, and then we'll jump back into some VPW because, like I said, 2012 was a wild year for me and for this belt. But Lucha Underground season 2, I watched episode 1 a couple of weeks ago. I'm trying to find ways to watch it. That way I can be more informed on it. So I got a handle on episode 1, and it just starts off with Montaz's sitting up there. Excuse me, Mil Muertes sitting up there in the bleachers, right amongst the people as the champion. He's got like a throne in the top of the crowd.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
So, and this is
when I come out as a cop.
Yeah.
I think episode 2, maybe 3 exposes it.
Well, this is gonna be a good season to talk about because
no, this
you have to flex your
funny
muscles.
Yeah, no, yeah, this is so much backstage stuff. It's ridiculous.
Well, I can't wait to get into it.
Yeah.
So we're gonna start that up next week. So Rick,
nice.
I'm looking for the gimmick. That's Ricky Reyes. I'm Kevin Fulton. This has been Podfluxxx. We'll catch you motherfluxers later.